Well, it's great to be in Escambia County. I want to thank Sheriff Chip Simmons for hosting us here today for this really important announcement. I also want to thank, I can't name everyone, we got a lot of great people here that are with us. They're going to be a part of what we're announcing today. Sheriff Wayne Ivey from Brevard is here. Carmine Marceno from Lee County. Naco, are you here? Where's Chris?
I think they got delayed.
Oh, they got delayed. I think Chris Naco and Chad Chronister from West Central Florida counties, they're going to be here. I think they got delayed because of weather. We have our great Attorney General, Ashley Moody, traveling with us. Thank you for all that you've done, and I know you'll be able to talk about some of the stuff you're doing here. We have Okaloosa. Are you here? Where are you at? Oh, hey, thanks, man. Appreciate you coming. We also have Sheriff Bob Johnson from Santa Rosa, Holmes County. Sheriff Tate, where are you here? Where are you at? Okay. Do we have Walton County? Yes. Mike Atkinson. Thank you. Appreciate it. We have deputies from Bay County Sheriff's Office, Representative Sheriff Ford, FDLE Commissioner Rick Swearigan, Chris Williams, FDLE Special Agent in Charge, Colonel Spalding, Gene Spalding from Florida Highway Patrol, and then we have Chief John Gorley, North Region Commander, Florida Highway Patrol, and then we've got a bunch of other folks here, Fish and Wildlife, a lot of great people. We also have legislators where you have Salzman, Andrade. Thank you guys for being here. Do we have Mayor? Do we have Broxton? Is Broxton here? No? Okay, well, we appreciate you guys and everything. So I want to thank everyone here for their hard work, particularly over the last year and a half, and particularly in a climate that's not always hospitable around the country, although in Florida we've made it very clear that we're standing with the people who are in uniform, who are working to keep our streets safe and our communities safe, and we're going to continue to do that. We're here today because we have problems in Florida that are not organic to Florida, that we've been forced to deal with over many years, but particularly over the last 6 months because of the failure of the Biden administration to secure our southern border and indeed to really do anything constructive about what is going on in the southern border. The Biden administration ended effective policies that have been implemented by President Donald Trump to curb illegal immigration across the southern border. They revoked policies designed to secure our border and keep Americans safe. They re-implemented catch and release, and they terminated the Remain in Mexico policy. Those had all those policies, ending catch and release, remain in Mexico, border security, all that had really, really worked to get a handle on what was going across the southern border. Now, it's like anything anyone's ever seen down there. You have caravans that are making their way and pouring across the border. You absolutely have the cartels that are taking full advantage of what is going on down near our southern border. And so this has an impact nationwide. I mean, for example, in May, we had in Martin County, 82-year-old woman raped by a criminal illegal alien. 82 years old. I mean, how disgusting. This guy had been arrested. ICE was not willing to take him and remove him. And so he ends up committing a dastardly act against an elderly resident in Martin County. In June, FDLE agents arrested 4 criminal aliens as part of a drug sting. They're moving 25 pounds of methamphetamine. When they were arrested, they shot an agent. Now, the agent survived, but just think about what's going on. And I can tell you, you talk to some of these sheriffs, particularly North Florida sheriffs in Northwest Florida, who are dealing with the meth problem that we're seeing, that is really, really ravaging communities, particularly in the northern part of our state. That meth, if you go back 10, 20 years ago, you'd find these places where they'd be cooking this stuff up locally. That's not what's happening now. It's almost all coming across the southern border. And it's been accelerating for the last 6 months, and it's deepening the problems that we're having in terms of getting a handle on this in our own communities here in the state of Florida. And so We've also had the situation, and the Attorney General has been a part of this. The Biden administration announces that they basically don't honor detainers from ICE anymore. And so if you have somebody that's here illegally, convicted of a crime, served time in Florida prison, ICE should take them and remove them. Now ICE is just letting them be released on the street. They are not taking them back. Ashley Moody, and with my support, we sued the Biden administration on that because it's a dereliction of duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. We were able to do that. When are we going to know from that case, do you think?
We're on appeals, looking good.
Okay. So we're going to be in a situation where hopefully we get a favorable disposition on that. But just think about it. They're actually releasing, these are convicted criminal aliens, and they're releasing rather than taking them, sending them back to the country that they came in. So what we have done here, we did the lawsuit. We're also working with, our Department of Corrections is working with local law enforcement to identify any of these criminal aliens that ICE is not honoring detainers for, and making sure that the local communities are put on notice that this is going on. The bottom line, though, is you are seeing increases in criminal activity, drug trafficking, human trafficking as a result of this failure. It is both a disaster and an emergency, what is going on, and even the director of the FBI has admitted as such. So why are we talking about this here in Florida? We're 1,000 miles plus from the southern border. Well, I told you that it does affect the state of Florida. It affects our ability to protect our communities from drugs. It obviously increases the possibility that we have recidivism in our community. But specifically, there was a letter that was recently sent by the governors of Texas and Arizona seeking mutual aid, which we do all the time in instances of emergency. These states have sent Florida support when we've responded to emergencies here in our state, and they wanted support so that they could do what the federal government is either unwilling or unable to do: secure the border and protect the people, not just of their states, but of the entire country because of the nationwide impact that has. And so today, we're here to announce that the state of Florida is answering the call. Florida is going to support Texas and Arizona. We believe that securing the southern border is important for our country, but specifically we believe it'll benefit the people of Florida to be able to get this under control. And so where the federal government has failed, the states are stepping up and doing our best to fill the void. So we already have a number of sheriff's offices and state law enforcement agencies that have committed to sending aid. Florida Highway Patrol, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, Florida Fish and Wildlife, Escambia County, Brevard, Lee, Pasco, Hillsborough, Okaloosa, Santa Rosa, Holmes. All these sheriffs immediately said, absolutely, count us in. And I think that I think it's good for Florida to help get this under control, but I also think it's just something when we have these emergencies and we ask, these states have been willing to send help to Florida, even if they wasn't anything in it for them, just because it was the right thing to do. So we think it's in our interest to do that, but we also think it's the right thing to do, and I want to thank everybody here for being willing to step up. So we are the first state to commit support for this effort in response to the request that was submitted by the governors of Texas and Arizona, and we're proud to lead yet again on issues that matter to Floridians. And so we're able to send our law enforcement support today, partially because in this state we support our law enforcement and we believe in funding law enforcement, we believe in protecting law enforcement, and we're even going to be distributing $1,000 bonuses to law enforcement very soon. We're tracking that. We're getting all the information. The budget will go into effect on July 1st. We look forward to being able to do that. You look at these places around the country where they've turned their back on law enforcement, and invariably you have steep increases in crime. And you're seeing that in many of these cities across the country where they've turned their back on the police. You see morale low in some of these places. People are quitting the force. I can tell you, people who are demoralized in a lot of those states, some of them just may retire outright, but many of them look to Florida to be able to link up with one of our sheriff's departments or police departments because they know they're going to have support of the state and the vast majority of their local communities. So it's sad that we have to be doing this, because when you deal with stuff, there's things that just will happen, and you got to put out fires. And there's no way an executive, whether it's as a county, a state, or even the federal level, can not have things happen that you have to respond to. I think the sad thing about the reason why we're here today is because this was a created crisis through bad policies. These were deliberate policies that had taken policies that were in effect prior to January 20th that were working, going in a different direction, and then really doing nothing to respond in an effective way when it's clear after months and months of this that the policy is utterly failing. And so we're happy to step up. We do it. We wish we didn't have to, but if they ask for our support, Florida's going to be there, and we're going to do all we can to be able to help with really a pressing issue for our country, and I think one that impacts communities all across the continental United States. And so thank you for this. Thanks everyone up here. We're going to hear from the Attorney General, and then we'll hear from the Sheriff, and then we'll do some questions. Go ahead.
Thank you, Governor. And thank you for being here today to highlight what I believe is a bold step, again, by our Florida governor to protect Floridians. Make no mistake, when the Biden administration began, it took a wrecking ball to the infrastructure controlling immigration in our southern border. And it left the devastation for the states to deal with no plan, no strategy, no enforcement action in place. And here you have a governor who is saying, we'll step up to protect Floridians. This is what real leadership looks like. Leadership is not sending someone down there to beg people not to come. That is not leadership. Look behind me. This is strategic enforcement action, as all of us in law enforcement knows it to be. When you have chaos versus order, crime versus safety, you develop strategic enforcement actions, and you bring peace and protection to your people. That's what a leader does. I can tell you, just in these short few months that this administration has been in charge, we have seen a 230% increase in fentanyl seizures, enough to kill almost half of the American population. We have seen over a 3,000% increase in sexual offenders being detained at the border. As a mother, as a former prosecutor and judge, that infuriates me and terrifies me. When this administration took office, they canceled Operation Talon, which was an enforcement action to round up and deport those here illegally that were convicted sexual offenders. I begged them not to do that. I was ignored, and they went further. Now they've said, we're not going to deport people here illegally that are serious criminal offenders. We're going to release them into our communities. And so thank goodness I have a supportive governor, and we brought suit. And we look forward to taking that case to court in September on appeal. This is important. The folks testifying in our case says the folks that are released back into our communities, these sheriffs that are told, release those criminal offenders that are in your jails, release them back into your communities, statistically, they will re-offend. And even if you set aside the cost that costs the taxpayers in Florida, think of what that does in devastation, in crime to our families and our communities. So I say thank you not only to our great governor, but to these heroes, the Florida heroes standing behind me. This is true leadership, and I'm proud to support and work alongside them. Thank you so much, Governor, for sending reinforcements. We appreciate it.
Great. Okay, we'll do Sheriff.
Thank you, Governor. I don't have prepared remarks, but I want to tell you why we're here, why the sheriffs are here. The sheriffs are here to support a governor that supports us. It's not always the case when you look around the country, but here in Escambia County, we understand that we have to be supported, not just by the community, not just by the state, but we have to be supported by the governor. And Governor, I want to tell you that it matters. to the individual men and women that are out there doing the job, that they know that the governor of their state not only says something, but he does it. And every time I've ever heard you talk, you're talking about supporting law enforcement, support law enforcement. And there's no doubt in my mind that that is true, and that's part of your heart. We talked a little bit about methamphetamines and how it's going from the border. We talked a little bit about fentanyl. It's easy to say that, but let me tell you how that hits home here in a place like Escambia County. Not a shooting, not a violent crime that goes by that we investigate that's not involving methamphetamines. We do, not a day goes by at all that we don't go to a call where someone's overdosed on fentanyl. So we can talk about the sheer numbers and the pounds and the kilos that are coming from the border through the interstate into our own Escambia County. Well, what does that mean? It means people are dying in our city streets, in our county streets, and it makes a difference. And again, it makes a difference whenever we decide to do something. We acknowledge this is an issue, this is a problem, we have got to come together, we have to do something with it. So, General Moody and Governor DeSantis, I want to say thank you for supporting us because we cannot do it alone. We have enough people that are criticizing us. Thank you for being here in Escambia County. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Wayne?
Yes, sir. So I'm going to start right where everybody else has, and that is to thank our governor for having the courage to stand up and be the first to come to the aid of our partners in law enforcement out in Texas and Arizona. I will tell you that our governor is about leadership. He's about crisis management, and more than anything else, he's committed to law and order. And I am proud to stand here with him for part of this announcement. I will also tell you that the current administration in Washington is talking about spending $4 billion of taxpayers' money to look at root causes in other countries of why they're migrating to our country. You don't need to spend $4 to figure that out. You don't need to spend $4 billion to figure that out. It's simple. This administration has opened the floodgates to our country. They've allowed illegals to come into our country, and with them, they are bringing victims of human trafficking. They are bringing fentanyl by the truckloads. They are taking everything that our ICE and customs partners can take. They're throwing it at them, and our law enforcement partners out there are overburdened. They're pulling resources from our communities, resources that we work with closely every day to combat illegal immigration. They're taking them and taking them out to the border, and all they're doing is shuttling people into our country. Our citizens are paying for it. Our citizens are not only paying for it with their tax dollars, they're paying for it with their lives. They're paying for it with their safety. Quite frankly, they're paying for it with their belief that government is going to protect them. Because like me and all of these law enforcement officers up here, our governor understands that government's one and only responsibility is to protect its citizens. And if the federal government's not going to do it, if the Biden administration is going to sit back and talk about root causes, then I'm proud to stand here with our governor who is going to do it. We're going to pull all of our resources together. The sheriffs that you see standing here, as well as sheriffs across the state of Florida, are ready to either deploy resources, work in augmenting state resources if the governor deploys them. Whatever it is that our governor needs, we are ready to rock and roll. Because quite simply, we can either fight this battle at the border where this administration from Washington should be fighting it, or we can fight it here in our own backyards. And when you look at fighting battles, we don't want to have to fight it in our backyard. So if the federal government's not going to do it, thankfully our governor is going to do it. And that's what this boils down to. We are all partnering together, collaborative effort, to send resources to our law enforcement partners out in Texas and Arizona to fight the fight that the Biden administration should be fighting for the American citizens. So, Governor, thank you for allowing us to be a part of this, sir. Thank you.
Carmine, you want to say?
First, I'd like to thank the General and the Governor and my fellow sheriffs here from across the state. Law and order are two words that are foreign today, and I will tell you, we have an Attorney General that is second to none and a Governor that stands for what's right at all costs. When this administration turns their back on us, I'm so proud to stand with our law enforcement here in the state of Florida because, like the General said, law and order and safety, safe families, safe children is what we deliver first and foremost every single day. And today, we're not going to take it. So we're here, thankfully, our governor, again, stands up for what's right at all costs. And, Governor, we can't thank you enough because I can tell you in our county, in Lee County, and the counties all over, We could not get our job done without our great governor and our attorney general. So thank you all for being here. Governor, thank you so much.
Good, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And you, I mean, you have people all across the state. I mean, what is it? How many hundreds of miles is it from Fort Myers to here, would you
It's
say?
about a 12-hour drive, so
Okay.
approximately probably 7 miles.
Yeah, and then you're probably at 6.
7-hour drive.
Okay, so, yeah, no, these are folks, and then obviously, you know, we have some folks that are closer to home here, but you can see this is something that is impacting communities across the country, across Florida, and the Attorney General talked about the alarming increase in these narcotics that are coming across the border, and particularly here in North Florida, this methamphetamine. I mean, this is just crazy. How it's just ravaging segments of our society, and it's probably the number one issue in a lot of these, you know, in terms of law enforcement. When they're interacting with people, it's usually not just somebody that's got a good head on their shoulders. It's usually there's some type of substance or drug addiction or involvement that leads them to even be involved in committing criminal offenses. And so this is not making it easier. We're happy to be leading on this. It is really, really frustrating, though, that this was a created crisis. This was a crisis created by going against policies that will be working just because you don't like your predecessor. That is the only reason, and that's why I think all the victims of what's happening, whether it's criminal activity, the people that are being trafficked, the people that are going to end up suffering because of the drugs pouring in, you know, this really did not have to happen. Arizona and Texas need support. We're standing up and we're going to help fight back with them. Take a couple questions.
Governor?
Yes.
Welcome to Pensacola, first of all. You are the first governor to answer the call from those governors in Texas and Arizona. Now, you are going to commit law enforcement to fighting or battling the problem on the border. So here's the specific questions that we want to know. How soon will they be sent? How many? How long will they stay? What agencies? And what will their role be specifically, Governor?
So I think some of those remain to be determined because we're going to work in concert with the states to figure out, you know, where would be the most beneficial, where we can make the most impact. They've been requested to go for 16 days across a variety of different functions, and so we anticipate it being in that 2+ week period. How many of them? Again, once we work with the folks in Texas and Arizona, we can get a sense of what would work and what would be effective. There's also supplies they've asked. We're looking to see what they want in terms of like UAVs or some of these other things. So all that is going to be worked out. We think this is something that they need on an emergency basis for a matter of weeks. That's what we're anticipating, and obviously, as we have finite numbers and those get cemented, you know, we'll be. I know the sheriffs are going to be talking about in their community how many people from Lee are going or whatnot, and so. But I do think it'll be meaningful. They have day jobs; they got to worry about that. They can't just do. But it's the type of thing where we've sent people to California when they've had wildfires. We've sent people to Louisiana for hurricanes. States have sent people to help us. In the past. And so there's certain disaster emergency situations where we just tend to step up and help one another, and so that's what we're doing here. Yes, sir.
Will it only be law enforcement, or was there any consideration of using National Guard or any other forces to go there and help?
So as of now, it's just our law enforcement agencies. So FDLE, Highway Patrol, Fish and Wildlife, and then the sheriff's departments. Although this is just a recent request, we went out and said who's interested in helping. They immediately, their hands went up. I bet you there's probably more agencies throughout Florida, police departments and sheriff's departments, who probably are going to want to get involved and help out as well. Yes, ma'am.
So obviously, these are our local sheriff's deputies or local law enforcement paid for with our local taxpayer money, and they're going to be sent to other communities. I know in Escambia County, gun violence is an issue. You've been talking all this time about how meth is an issue here. Is there at all any worry about sending the local law enforcement away to deal with another community's problems?
Well, I think I think what we've made the point of, Ashley made it, I made it, is that meth is coming from the southern border. I mean, let's just be honest. If that border was under control, we would have less meth pouring into Florida communities, and particularly in the northern part of the state. So we believe it's in our interest that this be gotten under control. We think if we are able to help bring it under control, that will benefit Floridians. And so first and foremost, it is in our interest, given how much, I mean, I don't know what the sheriff's, but it's 95% of the meth is coming from across the southern border at this point, and it's a huge problem. So that alone is enough. Then when you have somebody who, because they've stopped interior enforcement, you have an 82-year-old woman, in Martin County. Guess what? You're going to see more of that stuff happen unless this gets under control. So it absolutely helps the safeties of our communities here. Now, we do things to help out even when it's not directly related, but in this situation, it is directly related. I think it's the right thing to do. I think they would have our back, and when we have disasters, so it's only appropriate we have theirs. But fortunately, this is an example of it really serving a core state interest, just given how we've already, I mean, I don't even know how many, we're over 1,000 miles. We're the closest here. We came here because it's the closest we can get to the southern border and still be in the state of Florida. And yet we're still very far away from it, yet the impacts are absolutely felt in communities all across our country, including the state of Florida.
Have any additional sheriff's departments committed besides the ones that are here today?
So these have committed. It was an initial call. They responded very quickly. We do think that you'll end up having more that do, and obviously we'll let people know when that happens. Yes, sir.
Wanted to thank you for keeping the toll lifted on Garcon Point Bridge because of the state of the conditions here. Are you interested in acquiring that bridge for the state? Has there been any progress on moving towards that?
We are discussing ways with my DOT to make a beneficial impact for the people here. If you look, I mean, the toll is like it's like $5 toll now. I mean, it's crazy. And so you have people going back and forth. So we're trying to figure out, it's obviously had a lot of problems. Is there a way that we could be involved to potentially bring some toll relief to the folks here? We don't have anything to announce today, but we are having discussions about how we could impact that going forward. And it was really unfortunate what happened with that in terms of Sally. I mean, there was obviously other flooding and stuff, but I mean, that was just such an avoidable thing, and it caused a lot of people a lot of inconvenience to have to go all the way around, and it's just not easy to do. Obviously, it caused a lot of damage, and so we think we've addressed going forward in those situations, people having a clear responsibility to make sure this stuff is secured and make sure that this stuff is not going to be in a situation where it's going to do that. But I do think looking at how we do the bridge going forward, I do think that that's something that warrants discussion. And when we have an announcement, if I can have an announcement to say we're going to lower the toll, trust me, these guys will be there. We'll make sure that we do it. Saltzman, you want to do that? Okay. So we'll go from there. Okay. Anyone else that didn't get a chance to ask a question?
Governor, I have one more, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Now, we talk about the high number of overdoses in this area. As a matter of fact, the District 1 medical examiner talked about that last month when she said there was an astronomical amount of overdoses in this area. We're talking meth, drugs that are laced with fentanyl. Are you saying today that the amount of drugs and the amount of overdoses that are happening here are a result of Biden's policies of opening up the border?
So obviously we had drugs prior to January 20th. I mean, that's obvious. You can see that. We saw overdoses increase in 2020, largely because I think of the fallout from COVID, people feeling isolated, just how people's lives change. Even though Florida, we were the freest state, you couldn't escape that. So it's a problem. It's not like this is the only thing that's creating the problem. But I can tell you, I met in my office just a couple weeks ago with a bunch of the rural North Florida sheriffs. They had like 5 issues, and it was number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 were meth. That's what's happening. And they say it's all coming across the southern border at this point. Obviously, we didn't have 0 coming across prior to January 20th. I think we understand that. It's a constant issue. But the increase that you're seeing absolutely is going to mean more of the meth in our communities, and it is going to exacerbate the underlying problems. And so if we can push back on that, we could get back to where we were prior to January 20th, it doesn't mean you don't have to deal with it. You will absolutely still have to deal with it. And as the Attorney General said, I mean, the fentanyl that's coming in, there's a lot of fentanyl on the, I mean, they've already brought in enough to do so much damage. We're going to continue having to deal with that. Fentanyl overdoses were up sharply all across the country over the last year. Very, very potent and powerful and nasty stuff, and it's really destroyed and taken a lot of people's lives. So this is not, you could secure that border tomorrow. It does not mean that you would not have to deal with what we're having to deal with drug abuse. But if you see it flooding in like this and you know that's the #1 source, I think it'd be foolish for us not to do all that we can to try to fight back on behalf of the people of Florida. And that's what we're doing today. So we'll have more information about the contours of the mutual assistance, but you see all these folks here stepping up. I'm sure in each one of these sheriff's departments, they have deputies that are chomping at the bit to be able to go help, because yeah, you watch, and obviously they do a lot in their communities, but you see these images on the news, it just seems like everything's out of control. That's not how a sovereign country behaves. A sovereign country is able to secure its borders, and I think that there's a lot of folks who are like, man, I wish I could do something to help. Well, they have an opportunity to do it. I think you're going to see a lot of hands go up saying, hey, send me, I want to be helpful. So when we have all the contours of everything, we'll obviously let everybody know, but we're in the game here, we're answering the call, and I think some other states are going to follow our lead at this point. So thanks, everybody. We'll be back soon.